maybe in the new Hulu show that is scheduled to come out for UNC football. You know how those behind-the-scenes shows, they always do like the interviews while they're doing something, right? You get like Bill Belichick at home. He's on the grill answering questions about, growing up, and my dad was a coach and he was a Maybe we'll get that. We'll get to see what kind of a cut of steak Bill Belichick likes. UNC football, burying the lead there, is getting a TV show after all. Hulu will be producing a behind-the-scenes show of UNC football, which obviously will include Bill Belichick and Steve Belichick and Freddie Kitchens and the coaching staff and Lombardi and the front office as well as the players. It'll be a behind-the-scenes deal. I thought the ship had sailed on this particular kind of style of show because Hard Knocks got all the way to the 1 yard line on producing HBO Hard Knocks on producing a show about UNC, and it fell through. But I think I have simultaneously overestimated and underestimated the Bill Belichick effect on North Carolina. I thought, right, the maybe overestimation was that recruits would immediately jump at the opportunity to play for Belichick, and as soon as his name was announced and he signed on the dotted line, that they would just get a bunch of transfers that want to go play pro and want to have those connections. It's been a slow burn. The recruiting's picking up now, as we talked about yesterday, but that's been a slow burn. Overestimated it a little bit.
The transfer portals really, really hit. But again, in terms of the actual incoming freshmen,
they hit with huge volume, but even that, no 5-stars in the transfer portal.
Sure.
None of the top first-round picks projected next year in the transfer portal. But then where I've underestimated Bill Belichick is in the attention-drawing category. Right? I knew that there would be a lot more eyes on Belichick when he signed. It has been a whole different level of scrutiny than I expected. From his personal life, obviously, to award-winning journalists dedicating darn near entire seasons of their podcast to just breaking down every decision the guy has made, to him getting a 2-minute section of the ESPYs just dedicated to jokes about him and his personal life, to Lawrence Taylor showing up at events, to him being like everything he does is over and over and over scrutinized. So even when a huge opportunity, which I consider like these partnerships where there are behind the scenes shows, a massive opportunity for you to build your program's brand and your players to build their personal brands, even when a huge opportunity falls through, like HBO Hard Knocks, where my reaction is, man, that's a bummer. I underestimated it because there's always a similar opportunity right around the corner when your name's Bill Belichick. Right? He can turn down opportunities with more like willy-nilliness, if that's the term, like nonchalance than other programs because he knows we can, if we don't take this one, we'll take the next one. HBO Hard Knocks falls through. There's Hulu waiting in the on-deck circle. Emails obtained by WRAL. Shout out to Brian Murphy, the article I'm reading from at the moment. WRAL sports fan. He's a sports investigative reporter, friend of the show. Emails obtained by WRAL showed just how close the agreement on HBO Hard Knocks was to being announced by the school before it was ultimately ended. Jordan Hudson reportedly wanted, quote, content approval and partial ownership. That's the fascinating part of the Hulu deal. If that is in fact, right, and the emails that WRAL and Freedom of Information Act and all that stuff with Jordan Hudson were revealed, if that is truly the reason why HBO couldn't get it over into the end zone for Hard Knocks and UNC to be a partnership, does that mean Hulu caved on those demands? Or does that mean UNC and Belichick and whoever's in his inner circle didn't make those demands for Hulu, maybe after seeing the fallout of the HBO? We don't know, but that's why I brought up at the start of the show the question of, is this state-owned propaganda, right? Is this Jordan Hudson and or Belichick and or UNC has content approval and partial ownership, in which case we're only going to get the good? Or is this Hulu agreeing, I'm sure they're not allowed to just like trash, like with certain concessions. Does Hulu have the ability to make the most exciting and fully fleshed out behind the scenes look at UNC football? I think we'd all want the latter, but we'll settle for the former. Because I agree, like there's you want guardrails, right? You don't want to. It's actually one of the like most tried and true tropes in media, right? You open up your life, you give an honest interview, and you think a reporter is there to tell a story that puts you in a glowing light. Then you go ahead and read the article or something, and it's just completely trashing you, and you're like, wait a second, that's not cool. So you want to protect yourself against that. But, I mean, I don't know if you can have ownership, but like, or I'll put it this way. This is a different way to put it. There's all these music biopics coming out. There was the Freddie Mercury one. There was there was a James
Elton John one.
There was an Elton John. There was a late great Chadwick Boseman into James Brown. I'm always checking to see like who the executive producers are, because if they have the same last name as the subject, I'm like, oh, we're not getting the real story here, are we? Right? It's like, oh, are they going to, and I'm not saying this about any of the musicians we just mentioned because I don't know their histories enough, but it's like, oh, my guess is we're not going to get the story behind those, domestic violence issues in the 70s, right? When in order to use the music from the artist in the movie, they had to give final cut to the actual artist or their kids or something like that. Like, we're not getting the true story. UNC football, if you got to get the true story, they can't have like the ultimate final say and final cut. But then if I'm UNC football, I'm trying to use Wedding Crashers rule number 6. Draw attention to yourself, but on your own terms, right? Like you don't want to just point a spotlight on the skeletons in your closet, which, by the way, would get the most views for Hulu. So I'm just playing both sides of the fence here. If I'm Hulu, do you know what gets you the most watched documentary series you can possibly get?
What's that?
All the juicy details between Bill Belichick and his girlfriend. And you interview all the family about how they think about it, and you interview all the friends and all the players, and you don't ask them about what's it like to change your defensive scheme or how excited are you to be in the ACC. You ask them, does Coach talk about his girlfriend much? Like, that's the stuff that's going to get the tabloids. That's the stuff that's going to get the crossover appeal. Suddenly, you're going to have not only sports fans, but also reality television fans. You're going to have everybody else watching. But if you're UNC, you probably do want to keep it to the football and promote the players because that's the stuff that benefits your program more. There's a few interesting, I don't want to call them conflicts of interest, but like interesting parts of interest. Hulu is owned by Disney, which also owns ESPN. ESPN owns the right to broadcast ACC football games. They, meaning the media rights deal for the ACC, is very much banking on UNC and Bill Belichick being a massive draw towards the primetime games that they feature the Tar Heels. So this is a bit of using one arm of your business to promote what is absolutely necessary to be successful for a different, perhaps more important arm of your business. And this kind of, again, not full conflict of interest, but maybe, is the reason why when I talk about high school OT, or when we brag on a friend of the show, Chris Lee from WRAL, or Brian Murphy from WRAL, I try to do my best to always point out our companies are all owned by Capital Broadcasting Company, right? They're our colleagues, because that, radio promoting the TV all under the same umbrella, I want you to know what you're dealing with. Hulu promoting UNC football, who is a massive part of the ESPN football schedule this upcoming fall, I can see why they would want to put the best foot forward, or at least the most entertaining foot forward of UNC. But before you go too far down that path, ESPN is also the network that puts on the ESPYs and has approval of jokes and everything in monologues. And Shane Gillis, the host, in his monologue on Wednesday, cracked a whole bunch of jokes at the expense of Bill Belichick. So they're obviously not above it, not above using that to draw eyeballs. It is a very, very interesting way moving forward, and there's only one way we're going to know what type of documentary it ends up being. watch. And by the way, I have no connection to Hulu, so I'm watching, and I'm not necessarily recommending you do, or this is the no conflict of interest here. Just somebody that's interested in triangle football in the college level. I also want to see like Gio Lopez and Bryce Baker and see how the quarterbacks are performing. What's Max Johnson's leg looking like? How are they going to replace Omarion Hampton? I don't know if everybody else is as excited for that stuff as I am, but that's where my head goes first.